Hello, everyone, and welcome to the behavior portion of session 3, when and when not to act, because not every behavior needs a response right away. So some things that we'll cover today. Attention is fuel, so how your attention, even yelling, can make behavior stronger. The wait strategy, a simple approach to observe before you react. And then some practice. We'll do a little bit of role play that you can do on your own. I'll try to walk you through a couple of these examples as well. All right, so first, attention really is fuel. So any response, either you deem it as positive or negative, tells your child that I see what you are doing. Now, this is obviously something that you want to be able to do when your children are trying to show you something. Some kinds of behaviors you want to see more of, like advocacy when your child's saying yes or no to something, when they're trying to connect with you, things of that nature. But in many cases, sometimes we talk about yelling as a potential tool to decrease behavior. And then you might notice your child actually laughing at you and doing more of that behavior again in the future. That means that that attention was actually reinforcing regardless of your intention, right? So when your child screams or yells back at you, as an example, screaming gets me the response, right? Even negative attention or what we would call negative attention is still attention, right? Your intention might be to decrease that behavior, but ultimately if the behavior increases, that's not what happens, right? So all of these examples can count as attention. It could be looking at someone, angry staring, that parent stare. Playing with them can be attention, lecturing, talking with them, yelling at them. All of these together are different types of attention that can be given, and I'm sure you can come up with thousands of more from your own life. So the attention cycle, or at least what we call the attention cycle, more attention equals more behavior, even the quote-unquote bad kind. So a child acts out, screaming, hitting, throwing. You respond, yelling, lecturing, reacting, saying why that's bad, don't do that. And the child learns, wait a minute, the more I do this, the more attention I get from my parents and from my caregivers. So what you can do, though, is grade your attention at different levels, meaning when the child is doing something where they're not in distress, they're happy, they're talking, they're advocating in a way that you understand, so on. There's a million different examples that we can do here that also give lots of attention for that. If you're only giving attention for the times where the child is behaving in a way out of distress, then they're only ever going to be doing that to get your attention. So you have to give them more attention in various avenues throughout their day. So one thing that you can do is a wait strategy. If they're doing something, so for example, child screaming, hitting, throwing, you can still be present without looking, lecturing, yelling, or so on. You break the cycle by choosing not to react immediately. Sometimes as humans, we just have these reactions and we need to get them out of our systems. Right? You don't always need to have a response to every single thing your child does. Now, that being said, if they're putting themselves in danger or they're putting you in danger, active physical harm, sure, yes, interact. What you do is make sure that they're being safe, that they are in a safe situation, and so on. What you don't have to do is give a 50-minute lecture about why that was bad, right? You can still engage. You can still give a level of attention to keep everybody safe without giving so much attention, right? Because the more that you give, the more reinforcing that could potentially be. So again, this doesn't mean doing nothing. It just means observing before responding. As you've seen and heard from other sessions throughout this whole training, observing is huge. We want to think about what we're doing, look at what we're doing, and being intentional about the reactions that we have. So let's walk through this wait strategy a little bit more. So you observe the whole environment before responding. See what's driving the behavior. So in plain language and a little bit of an example, when your child starts acting out, take a breath. Notice what's happening around them. Notice what's happening inside of you. Then choose a response. Don't just react right away. Again, the point here is if you're looking around, maybe they're acting out because they feel unsafe about something. Maybe they are dysregulated. Maybe they are in distress for something that you don't potentially see. So if you take a moment to see and do a little perspective taking on what might be causing this particular behavior, you might notice something new and ways to try to keep your child safe and calm, or at least a little bit more comfortable. Again, safety first. If your child's running into danger or hurting themselves, always intervene for safety, but keep your response brief. Get them to safety, one sentence maximum. That's not safe. Then redirect. The goal is to limit attention during dangerous moments, not ignore danger. So again, waiting is not doing nothing. It's choosing to observe before you react. So let's go through a little bit of a role play here. So pick a behavior, choose a real behavior your child does at home that you find potentially difficult or something that might be distressing to you. Show us what that looks like, or write down what that looks like. Describe or act out the behavior so we can mimic it, right? Or so you can really look at what was the whole situation. And practice this calming scenario. Now you can do this with another partner. You can do this with your child and practice this there. You can do this as a thought experiment, or write down what you would do next time as well, right? So the child reacts. Your job, use the wait strategy, calm the situation, look at all of the variables around that child and around yourself, and then react. What would you do in the future? And then again, you want to debrief. What worked? What didn't work? How did you feel? What can you take home and apply with your child next time they're engaging in some of these behaviors here? So after you're thinking about those scenarios, or if you're working with a partner on this, we highly suggest working with a partner. Let's talk about what just happened. How did you react when the behavior started? What was your first instinct when you wanted to jump in or not jump in? What worked and what didn't? Both are useful information. So if you know something that works, this is something that you want to try to do more of, right? That's reinforcing. If it didn't work, you want to do less of that. We're trying to find the behaviors that work in a way that makes sense for your family. And then how can you apply this at home this week? Think about one specific moment you could try. Now, again, you don't have to do this every single time. We're practicing new sets of behaviors, and it's going to take time to be fluent and be comfortable doing so. Pick one behavior or one instance, and you say, okay, this week I will consistently react in this way, and I will use a wait strategy, or I will observe before I react. Again, this is practice. It doesn't have to be perfect, and that's the point. You might do this 100 times and it might not feel perfect. You grow, your child grows, the context changes all of the time. So just remember that as long as you're consistent, you're showing that consistency, you're building that trust with your child over time. So your homework this week is to track the ABCs. Remember the antecedent, for the behavior, B, behavior, what is actually happening, and C, consequences, what was the result of that behavior. So track these ABCs for both your child's behavior and your own reactions. What triggered your child to do a particular behavior, good or bad, right? For you, how did you react? What triggered your own behavior, internal or external? What made you stressed? What made you yell? What made you happy? What made you sad? We're really trying to look at your own behaviors and your child's behaviors. So for your child, what happened before, during, and after? For your behavior, what did you think? What did you feel? How did you react? And try waiting at least once this week. Try it out. Notice what happens when you pause before responding. And when we say pause before responding, it doesn't have to be, 5 minutes, 10 minutes. Just take 10 seconds for yourself. Look at the environment around and see what's going on. As long as your child's not in danger, you can take the full 10 seconds. And again, bring mindfulness and present moment to today's exercises into these stressful moments, right? We practice some of these things outside of those stressful times so that when they do happen, we have a little bit more fluency in actually doing them when the stressful time happens, because you've already practiced what that behavior feels like. And again, you don't have to react to every behavior. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is wait.